welcome back, Fighters Corner family. Good to have you back again. Today we have Antonio McKee. Antonio McKee, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best 155-pounders who ever fought. Very, very accomplished fighter. He runs a gym called The Body Shop. It's kind of it's a real hot spot if you know the sport. You don't hear him spoken about a lot, but these guys have lots of real strong independent fighters, including our guest Antonio McKee's son, AJ McKee, who's undefeated, currently 14-0, and getting better all the time. This is a real great interview. Our last interview was with Sean Simpson and Montel Griffin, and both of those guys, their fathers were real instrumental in their careers, kind of got them into fighting. This is kind of the opposite. Antonio McKee didn't have that positive influence growing up. He made it despite that influence, but when he grew up, he got to be that influence for his son and for lots of other people's sons because he coaches everybody. He coaches everybody like they're his kids. Enjoy the show. A lot of deep stuff. It gets real personal, but it's a fantastic show. Please check it out. And please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us grow the channel. Thanks. I'm a very regular guy, but I've gotten the opportunity to train with, spar, and roll with some of MMA's greats like Ricardo Lamas, Stephan Bonner, Miguel Torres. All of that started in one very simple place. I found a local MMA event. I saw some guys fighting. I liked how they fought. They almost always won, but even when they lost, I just loved how they fought. And I went to their gym, and I trained with this group of guys. You can go to big, huge MMA events, and I recommend it. Definitely check out a UFC, a Bellator, scream for your favorite fighter, go nuts, be a part of the crowd. But you're not really going to have something special when you're a part of a 20,000-person crowd. Go to a local MMA event, check out some fighters, really get involved in this sport. A great way to do that if you happen to live in the Midwest is to go to B2 Digital, B2 Fighting Series. It's a really great company. Mike is involved with this company, but this is not an ad. We don't get paid for this. We're just big, big advocates for grassroots MMA. If you really want to have a story to tell, you really want to meet some fighters, meet this sport, and see what this sport is built out of, go check out some local events. If you live in the region of the B2 Digital Fighting Series, that's a great place to start. It saves you from having to go to a bunch of crappy shows. Those guys are pretty quality. If you don't live in that area, still do some Google, do some work, find a local MMA event, get involved. We promise you will not be disappointed. BetDSI is one of the original online sports books. They've been around longer because they're better. They have more deposit options than any other competition, and with promo code Fighters Corner, that's one word, you can get 100% sports cash bonus. That means they'll match your deposit 100% up to $500. So you put in $25, you can bet like you put in $50. Put in $500, you can bet like you put in $1,000. Once again, that is BetDSI, promo code Fighters Corner. Welcome to the Fighters Corner podcast. This is Jonah Williams. I'm here with Mike Davis.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
John Goroski.
Hey.
And friend of the show, Tom Atencio, brought his buddy, Antonio McKee. If you don't know who Antonio McKee is, smack yourself, and then
I'd say sit down and strap in.
Sit down and strap in. One of the
Yeah.
biggest personalities in MMA.
Fought everywhere.
Fought everywhere.
Anybody.
29 wins. Anybody. Real interesting career. Butted heads with the UFC a bunch of places. Welcome to the show, Antonio.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show. You know, I love to talk, and I like to keep the shit real. Keeping it real is my job.
Well, why don't we start with one of the realest topics in regards to yourself? And, you know, it's not anything to do really with your fighting career, but, you know, who it is that makes yourself up. You've dealt with adversity your entire life. Is there certain steps that you take, like mentally, in order to push through hard situations? And what are some of the most difficult things that you have faced in your lifetime?
Well, okay, you got to keep me on task here. I'll make it quick. Look, I'll be honest, man. I'm from back south. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Things are still white and black as it is today. It's just more camouflaged today than it is yesterday. I grew up in a very low-income area called University Courts. You can Google it. It's still up and running to this day. People are dying as we speak. And I was able to make it out of there. with that came a lot of psychological issues. We have things such as PTSD. Well, I have HPTSD. That's called hood, or you can call it GPTSD. That's ghetto. And there's a lot of things that I suffered from, but I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that I was suffering from it until I had to look in the mirror, and I had to be a father. Being in a boys' home at a very young age, being sexually molested, watching people get raped in a boys' home, watching the staff rape the kids. Life is just, it throws more fucking curveballs than you can imagine. And on top of all that, I was a black man in America. I can talk for days about it, and I can explain everything, articulate it to where people who don't come from where I come from can appreciate the fact that I went on to, academically push the envelope. Unfortunately, I wasn't seen or known for that. I was known for my athletic abilities, but I'm really a smart guy. It's sad I have to say that, but yeah, I'm a smart guy.
Not to get. I mean, this is obviously a personal question, but not to get too descriptive. How long after was it the molestation that you talk about? How long after were you able to properly, like, kind of compartmentalize and deal with it, and kind of understand that you weren't, like you're a victim rather than? It's such a hard topic.
It's fun. No, it's not. It's not a hard topic because I'm over it. People who can't talk about it mean they ain't dealt with it. I think that the best out of what happened to me is that I can help other people who are having that issue or who are struggling with being molested, especially when it's someone close to you. It's just unfortunate I was molested by a woman, not a man, but
it's still damaging. People mistake that. That's still damaging.
Yeah, I guess when you don't accept it, it is. And I guess the life that I was living before I acknowledged it and accepted, I guess that was very damaging. But for me, I blocked it out. It's funny how, when we see things on TV or we hear somebody talk, we don't understand. We just don't understand unless it's happened to us. So, for example, this happened from the time I was 5 years old, maybe from 4 years old, all the way up until about 6 or 7. I blocked it out from 7 all the way to about 2021. And I was just a weirdo with girls. I was very shy. I wouldn't really talk to girls. I didn't let girls fondle me. Sex with me was pretty boring because I was just I wouldn't let them do anything to me. And head was, oral sex was not one of those things that I allowed. I wasn't comfortable with my own body. And I have a great physique. I was very muscular, ripped up, and I was just so, bashful about showing my body. And those are one of the things that I didn't realize that I had a problem with. A very promiscuous, extremely large appetite for sex, whether it came in white, black, Mexican, didn't matter. I had to be intimate with a woman, and I had to try to dominate her. I mean, I was really fucked up, excuse my language, but I was really gone, bro. And it took over 2,000 women for me to really realize that there's something wrong with me. And I was able to, to make the adjustments once I realized that there was something wrong.
Where does your drive come from?
My drive comes from my failure. My drive comes from my haters. My drive comes from that white man telling me I would be nothing but a fucking criminal or dead or in jail. Every time I think about something that's not going my way and I want to do something wrong, I think about what he said. He says 2 things are going to happen. We're going to either kill you or we're going to put you away for the rest of your life. And he was right. He would have killed me because I wasn't going to jail. I'm not jail material. But that's my drive. My drive is helping others and thinking about all the critics that I made it past, all the critics that I beat. I created an alter ego.
Is there anybody in particular that weighed in and became a big influence on you as a person, as who you became today?
My son, being able to have a son that didn't have, because I didn't have a real mom or dad. I was in foster care homes. I was in a boys' home for psychological evaluation. Then I was placed in a mental hospital. And then after the mental hospital, I was placed into a boarding school. And then from
How old
there,
were you when all this was going down?
from 7 all the way up to about 12,
Okay.
13. Um, and, yeah, just everything was just rolling, man. It was crazy.
So there wasn't a coach or a mentor or a neighbor?
See, I didn't really have that type of a lifestyle. I was always boxed up. I was always, in a room of restraints. I mean, I've been in restraints. I've been in straitjackets. I've been in 4 walls. Just when you're that young and you're exposed to that, you don't realize all the other things that are out in the world. I was just very closed-minded, and every day was, okay, who am I going to stab today? Are they going to shoot me in the ass with that butt juice? I wake up 3 days later. Like, man, it's some serious trauma going on in these facilities that people don't even know about. And imagine being a black male back in the 70s going through this, being this way. The only thing that saved my ass is that I was smart. I was really smart.
Now, you mentioned your son earlier, AJ. From what I gather, I've done some research. You appear to be a single father. Am I correct? Did you raise AJ?
Yeah, I was when I raised him. I was in a marriage, but that marriage was not a functional marriage. I was married to a Caucasian woman for about 17 years, and really, she probably was one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though there wasn't a lot of good things as what a normal marriage would appear to be. But it was a learning experience for me to turn around and then remarry today. I've been married now for almost 6 months, a new marriage. It taught me a lot about life. It taught me about a lesson. It taught me about dealing with other people, not just Mexicans or Asians. Cause see, I saw color. I'm not from where everybody else is from. I saw color.
That's crazy.
LA traffic.
You're at the gym.
Yeah. But I saw color. I didn't understand what I understand today. So being that, my son was in the same boat that I was in, he just had me and I had him. And so it was a lot easier for me to make adjustments because I would think about his feelings because I didn't have any. I was numb.
Well, definitely.
And he used to say some of the craziest stuff to me, man.
Yeah.
He used to say stuff like, "Dad, if you die, will I die? Can I die with you? Will we go to the same place together?" And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I planned on being killed in a hail of bullets with law enforcement or a gang or something. I planned on dying like I want to go out with a bang.
Making the news, huh?
Yeah. That was I had it all set up.
Where do you think that self-destructive type thought process came from?
Man, all I had seen my whole life is killing. Murder, kill, murder, kill, murder, kill. You know how important it is for a child how they're influenced. And if I wake up every morning in this bedrock ghetto and I watch somebody get shot in the head and I go to bed that night and I wake up tomorrow and somebody gets shot in the stomach and I go to bed and wake up again, I mean, what really, how am I supposed to think as a child? Let's go and be a child. All I knew was violence. All I knew was pain. All I knew was suffering. I didn't have the white picket fence with the green grass. That came later, but I had to make adjustments because I wasn't ready for that.
Okay, so
I was treated like I couldn't go on the other side of the bridge because I was black, and that's where the white people lived. And they caught me at the river, the Shelby River. They caught me trying to catch some fish because we were so freaking poor that I would go down to the river and catch fish, take it home, and my grandmother would give me 20 cents. I'd go buy some Jiffy cornbread mix that cost 15 cents, and she would fry the fish that I caught down at the river. But I went down to the river one day, and there was a Klans meeting. And they were going to hang. They're trying to hang me as a child. But I ran away, and I ran in these tubes. Like this shit is crazy what I lived through. And when I tried to seek counseling, people thought I was lying. They thought I had this vivid imagination as a child. But then when you go back and you look at everything I'm telling you, you say, well, yeah, that did happen, but we don't know about this, but we don't know about that. So I just made this shit up as a kid.
Huh.
So, like I said, there should be a documentary or a book, because I don't know anybody living to this day that is mentally stable that went through what I went through. No one in my past that you talk to will tell you, we don't know how he made it. This kid was on something different.
Antonio, like when I describe you to somebody, and the first thing that people always mention is your accolades inside the cage, but I think the cage was the easy part for you. It was everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I firmly have. I mean, I think we met each other for 2 seconds at a show here in Chicago, and my little deep dive of you is just I got a ton of respect for you as a person. It has nothing to do with you fighting. So what footsteps or things did you avoid with AJ in order to break the cycle? Because essentially what you're telling us is you persevered and broke the cycles of life that have broken most people. So what have you done in particular with AJ to ensure that he didn't have to deal with some of the hardships that you yourself went through?
The first thing is I took full responsibility of being his mother and his father. I had no family here in California. Remember, I came here. My mother was an entertainer. She got strung out on drugs. She dated a drug dealer. She dated a gangster, a pool hustler, a shark. Life was, in one car and into the next hotel, out of the next hotel. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to stabilize my lifestyle. And when I made this little boy and I looked in his eyes, it was something that, it's weird. There was he couldn't talk, but he could talk. You know what I mean? It was a spiritual connection. And he would just say some of the craziest things to me. And I said, man, I need to be here for this kid because he's just like me. We used to lay out in the middle of the yard and look up at the stars. And I would just gaze like, come and fucking take us away. This life is fucked up. I don't want to be here. But this little boy kept saying things to inspire me like, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be like you, Dad. When I grow up, will I have this? Will I have that? So that was my go-to.
You.
You know what I mean?
Touched you, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck, I can't do anything stupid because I'm all he's got.
Yeah, you don't want to leave this world now.
Parents on one side didn't want him. His mother's Lebanese and Russian. I'm black. They completely outcasted me because I was black. You know what I mean? So here again, we're dealing with this racial stuff that I'm completely unaware of. At the time, I didn't understand it. So, when I got in the cage, man, that shit was easy. Forget the cage. When I got on a wrestling mat, I tried to break somebody's freaking neck. I would try to let all my pain and my anger out on the mat. And for a long time, it worked until I got somebody that was just as strong as me or just as athletic as me. And then I had to learn the technique. You know what I mean? And by the time I figured it out, by the 10th grade, I went undefeated 5 years in wrestling, captured 3 state titles, only wrestler ever go undefeated in college and not even give up but 1 takedown. I mean, that was where I put it. But then after that was over. Now what?
This is where what introduced you to wrestling? And I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean,
I like to fight.
Yeah, and a lot of. I'm sorry.
And it was the closest thing I could get to a fight.
Who took you to your first wrestling practice?
I boxed actually first. I boxed for Sunny Seaside, and Muhammad Ali had a gym on Long Beach Boulevard and 7th Street in Long Beach. They wouldn't let me spar. I wanted to spar. They always make me come in and hit the damn bag. I don't want to hit the bag. I want to fight. I like to fight. My daddy was a professional boxer. He was a fighter. He fought Muhammad Ali. Fighting's in my blood. There's a such thing as DNA. Okay, that shit's real.
Whoa. Let's pause, rewind that. You said your old man was a what, and he did what versus who?
My father was a professional boxer. He fought on the card with Muhammad Ali. His name was Lefty, and he was a Golden Glove champ.
No shit.
Wow.
That's incredible. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Antonio, I'm gonna be honest with you. You drop these little bits of knowledge.
Yeah, and we're nerds, man. We're nerds, so we're gonna
like
tell
the
you.
fight. The fight game is cool. We like to hear the corner talk. We really like the instruction and stuff like that. So these little bits of information, we'd kill ourselves if we didn't kind of stop you and
that's what's really useful to kids too.
Look, bro, I'm here to talk, and I'm here to be the truth. It affected my life in a good way. People think it affected it in a bad way. Oh, I got kicked out of the UFC. Fuck the UFC. You know what? They did me a favor because I probably would have committed a mass murder in there. I'm not the kind of guy that could have went through what I see a lot of these other fighters go through. A lot of things that Dana says or the upper staff says. I would have walked in with a gun and shot the fucker in the face and went to jail.
All right, here, let me transition a little bit. Okay, so you're sitting here talking about rage, and obviously, you know, through your life experiences, you understand like you got to go to a place to get that rage. But I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw you in the cage, when I see you and watch you in a cage, I see someone that's at peace with themselves and calm. So what you're describing about how you are doesn't appear, I mean, the damage you inflict certainly, you know, is telling of that feeling, but you're incredibly calm when you're in there.
Very cerebral.
You know what? Look, I'll give you an example. Rampage is the softest guy. He's not a mean dude. He's not a street thug. He's not a monster. But let me tell you something. When he gets in the cage, that's when he becomes the monster. That's when he becomes powerful. Okay? George St. Pierre, scary as hell. Conor McGregor, scary as hell. But when they get in the cage, they're protected. They're protected in that cage. There's something mentally that takes over. And that's where I felt my safest, when I'm in the cage. Oh, it's okay now. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, to be honest with you. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to control the situation. I'm in control of this. This is amazing to me. I don't want to induce bodily harm to anybody. There was a couple of fights where I hurt somebody, but let me tell you, they didn't tell you that after the fight was over, I was in the back praying with them, telling them that I apologize. I didn't mean to cause any harm. It was that moment. You know what I mean? And so when you have that moment, that's my moment in that cage. No one understood it. But that was where I had that moment. Don't try to understand it. Just accept it.
Who was your biggest influence as a wrestler coming through the ranks?
Kenny Monday.
Whoo! Olympian, UFC vet.
Kenny Monday and Dave Schultz.
Ah, dude. You know what, man? Those two names right there, I mean, you feel it in your heart when you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah. Man, wrestling hurt me, though. It set me up for life, but it hurt me.
Did you wrestle with them in high school?
Yeah, I wrestled like on a freestyle team, okay? First, this guy named Fox, what's his name?
Foxcatcher, yeah. You're talking about DuPont. Right? Yeah, Mark Coleman was out there with him.
DuPont offered me a stipend to wrestle. He paid me $30,000 a year. I started wrestling when I was in 9th grade. By the time I was in 11th grade, I was unbeaten. I beat John Smith, who was Olympian. There was a big controversy about me beating him and the weight and the grease that was in my hair. I mean, that stuff was irrelevant to me because I didn't, look, man, I kicked your ass. I don't even know who the fuck you are. But anyway, whatever. We can take it outside if you want to have it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So for me, I saw the way blacks were being treated in wrestling, and I wanted no part of it, but it was my ghetto pass. It was my way out of the ghetto. And it worked because the coach from Cerritos College saw what I was capable of. Instead of Bobby Douglas, at the time Bobby Douglas was the man, but to me, and no disrespect to Bobby Douglas' accomplishments or what he accomplished as an individual, as a coach, but for me as a kid coming up, I had no respect for him. He was, to me, the Uncle Tom. He was a house nigga.
Yeah.
Because I saw what he was doing. He don't remember because he was doing it. I was a kid watching, looking for answers as a young black man. And the answers were, wow, I think I can do this. He gave me no love, no support. He told me no matter how good I was, I would never wrestle for Arizona State University because I had a problem. Instead of trying to learn and help me with the problem, he was criticizing me and he was judging me. Unlike Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith saw what potential I had and said, how can I help you with this? And I said, well, I have no place to live. He says, I didn't know that. He put me in a roommate with a bunch of guys. I learned to be, I learned how to have roommates. I learned how to respect other people's property because that was a problem. I didn't understand all that stuff. I took what I wanted. So that was a learning experience. And then economics, I started having financial issues. Coach set me up a job. I never went to work on time. I was always late. I eventually got fired, and then he got me the job. Everything was growing pains, but I was a smart kid, and eventually I figured it out, and I got it together. But the racism that I saw in wrestling, I was like, what the hell is this? This is crazy. I'm beating this guy 8-0. You call me for stalling? You call me warning? You give him 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. You raise my hand like I won. Then you go in the back. You change the card. You say, you had too many cautions. We're going to take the match away from you.
Yeah.
You're no longer going to be able to go to CIF because I just knocked off the number one guy in CIF. He loses the second round. I don't get to go to CIF. I mean, I didn't understand that the coach of the team was the friend of the referee whose dad was the coach of the team, and his son, they're all related.
It's
and then
politics.
the kid comes up to me and says, I'm sorry. I didn't know what was going on, man. You beat me fair and square. But that's not what the people saw. And I saw that so many times in wrestling. Look at Joey Davis, kid I coached since he was 5 years old. He went 133-0 from Compton. Do you hear anything about him?
No.
No.
Exactly. That's my point. Kenny Monday, Dave Schultz, Lee Kim, Kevin Jackson, Kevin Rendleman. Okay, I didn't know that wrestling was the good old boy neighborhood. I didn't know that. I thought, hey, yeah, I'm just a good wrestler. But no one has a shoe line except for Jordan Burroughs. And as soon as Jordan Burroughs is done, I hope he keeps his shoe line because guess what? He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. And so was Kenny Monday in his time. And so was Kevin Jackson. And those guys don't have a shoe line. Kel Sanders has a shoe line. John Smith has a shoe line.
Yeah, there's not a lot of those out there.
These influential white guys have a shoe that's still to this day putting money in their pockets. And the only person that we can talk about with a shoe line is Jordan Burroughs, who is active right now and one of the best wrestlers in the world.
Ever.
This is a fact. This is a fact. This is not my opinion. And I just want to ask the question as I addressed it to the USA Wrestling Organization. Why is it so unfair for male blacks in wrestling? We're 2019, and we're still talking about the shit that was done to us 400 years ago and still to this day. And you wonder why I'm the way I am? Because I come from an era where this shit was going on back then. And it's still going on to this day. But I'm not on a platform of 5 million people to express my pain and my suffering. I'm not on a platform to say this is unfair. This is injustice here. This is not right. Why am I judged? Economic depression set us all apart. Is it not true we're not going to base things on race, but let's base it on financing? What did I inherit from my ancestors? What did I inherit from my mom, my dad? They left me a bill to bury them.
Yeah.
All the slave labor, all the corporations that right now are billion-dollar industries that are functioning very well, what did they leave their kids? You put me in a situation to move forward, but yet I was 10 steps behind. And I'm still here. I'm still moving forward. We're still number one in entertainment. We're still number one in sports. We are inventors. We are creators. We're that guy. But yet, look at us mentally. Mm-hmm. We're broken.
Well,
we're broke.
Well, let me, if you don't mind me interjecting, let me talk about yourself breaking the cycle. You have actually done something that very few fighters, even at the highest levels of the sport, can ever do, and that's transition to becoming a full-time fighter and having, the fight game actually pay you enough salary to where you could do what it is you love for a living and eventually open up a gym. And you did all of that while not participating at the largest show, which is the UFC, still is, and you were able to accomplish that. How difficult was it, and what steps did you take in order to make that happen?
Honestly, the pain came when I decided I wanted to fight, because before I fought, remember, I slept in my car, I slept in my business, I slept in the back of a garage until I could make enough money to open up a storefront. Remember, my first passion was electronics. I used to watch this white guy had a house that he would buy, and I got into real estate at a very young age because I had a Jewish guy that took me under his wing, smart guy, and he says, I want you to watch this house for me, and I'm going to pay you every Friday as long as nothing gets stolen out of it. I would watch the house, make sure none of the appliance came up missing, and he would rebuild it, hub it, and set it up for Section 8. I didn't know what Section 8 was. My mother was a Section 8 person. So now he says, you're a really neat kid. I like you. He started teaching me electrical. I started running electrical wires and installing GFIs and learning that, at 6 feet, 12 inches high, you need to have the boxes here and da-da-da-da-da. So basically he taught me a trade. And so then I thought I could be an electrician. I was always fascinated with electronics. I opened up a stereo shop out of the garage that I slept in. I would go and buy stereo equipment off the street that was stolen, and then I would spray Armor All on it, make it look brand new, put it in my display case in my garage, and drug dealers and gangsters would come to me, and I'd install stereos. I was self-taught how to install stereos. I started making a lot of money. I started learning how to work with electronics and installing stash spots, building speaker boxes, customizing speaker boxes for the trunks, making these cars rattle. At that point, I went and worked for a stereo shop. I started really getting good at electronics to where eventually I opened up one shop. I opened up a cellular spot, a pager shop. Then I opened up a carpet cleaning. I became an entrepreneur. I never worked for anybody. And when I did have a job, I stole from them. I worked at a cash register, and I was collecting thousands of dollars a day, and I would take money out of the cash register because my mother couldn't pay the rent. I never did things for personal gain. I did it to take care of my mother. I did it to take care of my sister. I did it to take care of my brother, my sister, my people that I called in the streets, my brothers. I never did it for me. So I was able to really become known in the community. Snoop became a rap star. I grew up with Snoop, Nate Dogg, Warren G. Next thing you know, they're bringing me their cars to work on. Hooked up with Death Row Records, started working on their cars on the back end, started making some really good cash. Started putting every dime and every nickel away. I never wanted to be homeless again. I never wanted to bathe my son out of that crock pot because we didn't have cold water in the shop. And I got to a point where I had about $100,000. And I took that $100,000 and I invested in a condo in Laguna Niguel with a school teacher that I was dating, a white lady. She was 36 and I was like, I think I was like 21, 22. She taught me about credit. She taught me about investing my money. Eventually, I lived in Laguna Niguel and I was drove out of Laguna Niguel because I didn't understand at that time back in the early 90s, late 80s. I didn't understand that blacks weren't supposed to live out there. I just wanted to get away from the ghetto. I wasn't thinking about I wanted to be around white people. I wanted to be in an area where I just wanted to be in an area where I didn't die, where I didn't get shot, because I had became a respectable name in the hood. People knew me for being a businessman and hooking them up and giving them deals and taking care of them. I never did anybody dirty. I always had the cheapest prices. And even when they set up to rob me and kidnap me, they ended up kidnapping somebody else and not me. You know, God has been there watching over me the whole time because my heart has always been in the right place. I just did things sometimes that weren't right. But I never, ever felt good about what I did when it wasn't right. I just wanted to better myself. And so from that point, I had money. And when I went into fighting, it was because I was so tired of business. I was being hated on. The people wouldn't rent me a building because I did not understand. It wasn't me that they were worried about. It was the business and the traffic that I kept. Now I understand it.
So you were financially successful before you even fought.
Huh?
So you were financially successful before you even fought. Like you would achieve success in other ways.
Right. Why do you think I could do it and not have to worry about the UFC picking me up or worry about how much money I made? I didn't fight for the money. I fought for the cause.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's some deep shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mind is blown right now.
Yeah. You know, Antonio, I mean, you get what do they say? Preach church at the end of this stuff. Let's talk, if you don't mind, just now. Kind of, we've got your background. I think I'd like to transition onto your fight career if you're comfortable with that.
Man, we can do whatever you want to do.
Right,
I got so much shit in my head. So I'm 50 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot going on here. I'm pretty sharp for somebody my age coming through what I'm coming through, and now we're in the fight game because we ended there. Now we're in the fight game. I'm watching some shit on TV. I'm like, wow, this shit's right up my alley. I'm 30. How was I? I think I was 30 years old. I was a badass in wrestling. I went undefeated, unblemished record in wrestling. This is real close to it because at that time, the Gracie family was kicking ass. So I saw it on TV. I was driving down the street one day. I saw this place that said jiu-jitsu. I walked in there. Cocky ass Antonio. I walked in there and said, hey, I want to do this. I'm a pretty good wrestler back in my time. They said, oh, well, come back tonight. The pros train at night. Came back that night. beat the shit out of everybody. I picked him up, slammed him, threw him around. Oh, it was great, man. I thought I was having a good old time. I'm like, shit, I'm going to be the next UFC superstar. Man, they brought their instructor in, and he told me, hey, when you going to come back tomorrow? Our main instructor's here. A guy named was Francisco Bueno. Brought me in, came back in, I kicked everybody's ass the day before. He came in. He told me to go with his guys. He watched me, seen what I was doing. I didn't care about weight. Then I went with him. Fucker tapped me out like 10 times in less than 5 minutes, and I didn't understand it. Even though he was 220 pounds, I was only 156 pounds at that time. I didn't understand because I had never been submitted. That was some new shit. Pop my shoulder out, pop my arm out. My ego was bigger than my desire to tap. And so I went home, packed it with ice, came back another day. He didn't say much. We went again. I did a little better. He only tapped me out 3 times this time. He says, hey, you're pretty tough. I want you to train here. I'm not going to charge you. I started training there. Within 3 months, he wasn't tapping me out anymore. I was taking him down, picking him up, slamming him. And then he hired me to be his wrestling coach because my wrestling was that good. He took me on a tour. I was training in Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu with, Hoyce, Wadiji Ishmael. I didn't even know any of these guys. These were all high-level Pride fighters back in that time. I didn't know anything about that stuff. And they would have these private sessions on Sunday, and I would be out there for maybe an hour straight. They would rotate in on me, one after the other. Hey, are you okay? Can you keep going? Oh, yeah, I can keep going. You know, in my mind, I'm just trying to be the baddest person that I can be. And I would literally go for an hour and 20 minutes straight. And they would tell Francisco, wow, who the fuck is this guy? You know, I was kicking Dan Henderson's ass back then. You know, like I trained Dan Henderson. No one knows this because these guys would take me privately and train me in these private facilities. But all I was doing was sparring with them. No one understood that level of wrestling, right? And I'm freaky strong for my age and my weight. I'm 162 pounds, and I'm throwing Dan Henderson around like a rag doll. And you can bring him on. Anybody that I tell you about, if they tell you the truth, they'll say, yeah, he did, but he's always talking shit. No, I'm not talking shit. Sharing my fucking experience of when you train with me. I literally have kicked everybody's ass. I'm not a fan of trying to be a macho guy. I'm just telling the truth. And just the fact that you don't want to accept it, that's not my problem. But don't lie. So, you know, of course, they probably could have knocked me out if there was punches, but you couldn't stop me from taking you down. I took everybody down and I controlled them. So at that point, they hooked me up a fight. I was in a crowd one night. Francisco was fighting. I went to actually coach him because I was a lot older than him. Francisco was like 20, 22 years old. I was 32, 33. I took him to a fight. I coached him. He says, hey, they're missing a guy. You want to fight? I didn't know shit about nothing. I just said, look, man, I can fight. I got in there and I won my first fight.
So
I had
your
two
first
fights.
fight, you were there just to coach, and they just needed somebody, and they.
Right.
So really, you were set up to take a loss, and you ended up smashing somebody who didn't know.
I really don't think that was the case. I just think that they needed fighters, and I was in the crowd, and they said, "Hey, McKee, you want to fight?" Because the guy that knew me was Ted Williams. He knew I was a badass wrestler because I used to kick his ass. You know what I'm saying? And so he was like, "Hey, you want to fight tonight?" I was like, "Yeah." They got me some mouthpiece and some shorts and put me in this shit. I went out there and I just picked the guy up and I slammed him and slammed him and slammed him and slammed him until it was over. And that was my first fight. And then my first pro fight was Shannon the Rich Cannon.
Yeah.
I picked him up and slammed him. See, I started at the early age when weight classes didn't matter. I was fighting guys 200 pounds, 170. I was 160 pounds. Then I met defeat. I met Chris Brennan. I was 6-0. Chris Brennan had over 17 fights. And it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I was training in my garage. I had no experience training. I was just a wrestler. And I did push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups, and I'd wrestle.
Mm-hmm. At the gym.
I was having sex. I was having sex 2 hours before the fight.
Nah, it's no good.
In my truck. And I went out there, and if you watch the fight with me and Chris Brennan, I took him down. It looked like an easy fight. And in the second round, I had no legs. And I faked the shot, went halfway in, and then realized I don't have legs. pulled out, had my hands down. He kicked me in the chin and knocked me out. That
So
was the greatest thing that ever happened.
So you pulled out twice that day. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. No excuses. I deserved it. You know what I mean? And I had just 2 weeks prior, I've never been knocked out by somebody kicking me. In fact, I've never been knocked out a day in my life, and I've had a lot of fights.
All right, now, how did that fight change you? I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize. That's one of our asterisks. We've got like a little roadmap that we're trying to follow with you, and so far, so good. But Chris Brennan's on there.
Cut me off as much as because I'll talk all fucking.
No, so how did that fight change your fighting style? Did it or did it not?
It did because I never trained. I trained in the garage. You know what I mean? I did everything on my own.
So you just did
and so now
stuff.
I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't know anything about kicking. Motherfucker kicked me in my face. I watched it and threw up. So I said, you know what? I'm going to learn. Now, at this time, the rumors about me is this kid is unbelievably talented. I fought Joe Camacho. I fought Joker, Mike Guyman. These guys were 200, 190 on juice. I'm 162 pounds eating donuts and Snickers and Doritos. I knew nothing about diet, nutrition, none of that. So after being knocked out, you know, it humbles you. It humbles you. I thought about killing Chris Brennan. I was going to go to this man's house and kill him because I thought that.
How dare he?
I lost. Right. But, you know, I laid in the bed and I kept telling myself, you judge a champion, you judge a winner, how he returns from defeat, not how he's winning and he's on top.
But let me interject. That was your first loss in how long? If you include wrestling, you include MMA, everything.
Checkers, everything.
I would say 8 years, 9, 10 years.
Jeez.
I had a good run, man. From the time I hit 11th grade, I never lost a wrestling match.
And you were wrestling against kids who had wrestled their whole lives.
College.
Yeah.
Huh?
And you were wrestling against kids who had wrestled their whole lives, and a lot of them paid the guys who were also reffing to train them on the weekends, you know, and had all those connections like you were saying.
Yeah. I became that coach later for Aaron Pico and the Valencia boys. Yeah, exactly.
How big of a dump was that? Like an emotional dump? How long did it take for you to get over that Chris Brennan loss?
It took me 2 weeks. I remember it like yesterday. I laid in the bed for fucking a week. And I just thought about, okay, I got to get this guy's address. How am I going to...
Got to get away with it.
Really understand, bro.
How can I get away with it?
Yeah.
You got to understand something. I was a really fucked up kid. But I operated on what I knew. So blame that on society. Blame that on my mother. Blame that on my dad. You know what I mean? Blame that on the environment that I was raised in. Don't blame me. I'm an innocent kid. I really didn't know right from wrong and think that it was a bad idea to go and kill somebody. I thought, hey, it's his time to go.
Well, your normal is set during your life. Like, normal isn't the same for everybody. Normal, that was your normal.
It was normal for me. I grew up in a gang-infested area. There was shootings every fucking night. We were doing drive-bys, ride-bys. Man, we were letting this shit loose, bro.
Wait, for legal reasons, we're going to say they? Because you were
not
involved
we.
in this.
They were
you
letting
certainly,
things loose.
You were certainly... We at the Fighters Corner podcast know that Antonio McKee has never committed a crime, especially one that does not have a statute of limitations.
Well, they couldn't pin me to anything because there was nothing I ever did that they could pin me to. So
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about that. In fact, I was working down at the police department.
Yes.
I was down at POW. I was down at Police Athletic League coaching, training the chief of police. See, I was always in the middle. I knew the drug dealers, and I knew the gangsters, and I knew who cops were.
That's a good place to be. That's a good place to be.
No, that's a really dangerous place because anytime a cop was upset with me, they'd put in the street that I was a snitch. Hey, look, man, I'm going to tell you, police are dirtier than the gangsters. And my friends were cops. All the guys that wrestled became police officers. I saw both sides of ugly.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through, you know, we like to kind of do a little practice here where we go through some of your older fights, you know, prior to the big show or just after the big show, because there's some highlights in there, and it's more like behind-the-scenes stuff that really interests us. What was your experience fighting for Mark Pavelich with the Max Fighting Championship?
Look, Mark Pavelich is a great guy. He gave me an opportunity, and I told him when he did it, I said, there's nobody that can beat me at 155 pounds at the time. I've been undefeated for like 7, 8 years. I don't remember what it was. Long time. One of the only fighters to be undefeated. I was denied the UFC. I was denied Strikeforce because they had nobody that could beat me. Who? Josh Thompson? I would have beat the shit out of Josh at that time. Who? Matt Hughes? Sean Shirk? Jens Pulver? Those
BJ
guys
Penn.
can't out-wrestle. They couldn't out-wrestle me. Frank Triggs? None of those guys could out-wrestle me. So how are they going to beat me if their strength was wrestling? The only advantage that they had is that they could probably get lucky and land a punch. But if you're throwing a punch at a good wrestler, 9 times out of 10 you get taken down. If I took them down, they couldn't get up. So, but I went about it the wrong way. I wasn't managed. I was going into these gyms. I was going to these training places and challenging them in front of everybody. Hey, Jens Pulver, I'll take you on right now. I'll fuck you up. I really thought that was okay to do. I learned later, no, you basically screwed your career up because not only did you scare people, but you were uncontrollable. But look at what's going on in the sport today. You got Conor McGregor doing this shit, and this guy goes to jail. John Jones is drugs and this and raping and this and that and smacking and throwing chairs to. I was before my time.
Yeah.
And social media has actually helped that behavior. Prior to it, it was frowned on. Now that social media is where it's at, it's actually helps people. It's wild. It's wild.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't help black people.
No,
Because
it's helped John
whenever a
Jones.
black man, it didn't help him. That shit destroyed his career. As far as sponsorships and real money and endorsements, look at John Jones like Michael Jordan. Imagine Michael Jordan doing the things that he did. Where would Nike and Michael Jordan be?
Not together.
Who had the Nike sponsor? John Jones.
John Jones, he did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He could have been Michael Jordan of Nike for MMA. But see, you'll never know
Yeah,
that because he
it's
fucked
true.
up.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, you know what, man? You make a good argument on that. Like, it certainly helped his popularity in terms of pay-per-view. I mean, they moved an entire event to a different state because he failed a drug test. But those are just kind of like marginal things that are like right here and now and not long term.
And that helps the UFC more than it helps John Jones. I mean, John Jones wanted that Nike contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're right on that. I agree with you.
Look, man, I can talk to you about anything because one thing you won't do is you won't sit up and talk to me and lie. I won't sit up and lie to you. I'll give you facts and I'll support that fact. And then I'll give you my opinion. And then if you're smart or any type of an intelligent person, you'll say, shit, that makes sense. Because right is undefeated. I'm undefeated.
Yeah.
When I won't talk about something that I don't know about. I'll just listen. But when you ask me to talk about something, I'll support it with facts. And then I'll give you an opinion based on the facts that you can't deny it. And that's why I'm so good for interviews. But guess what? They won't bring me on the Joe Rogan show. They won't bring me on the Ariel show. Those guys will say my name, and then that's it. They'll shut up, and they'll move on to something else. Why won't you bring me on your show to talk? Because I'll shut that shit down with your 5 million viewers watching me make you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I respect both those guys.
I do too.
Yeah.
You got 5 million followers. Why would you not want to bring me on the show and talk about Chuck Liddell, talk about his training, talk about Aaron Pico, talk about all the guys that are training with Antonio McKee and that are successful?
And that
why do you want to go and talk about?
And you do bring up the
coaches?
fighters and you bring up the fights, but they don't bring up the body shop.
Because they're afraid of what I do, what I say. I'm the new Malcolm X. I'm the new Martin Luther King. I'm the new Marcus Garvey. I'm the new Minister Farrakhan. In this time, 2019, the difference is I have a white daughter. I have been married to a white woman for 17 years. You can't call me a racist. I just have my opinions and my views on racial stuff in America, and it's wrong. And I'm going to address it. And I'm not going to turn the other cheek, but I understand it. I really understand it. And I'm able to take and explain it to people to where they go, you know what? It makes sense. He's right. I get it. You're afraid. And I'm not saying you. I'm talking about those that are in power. They're afraid. They're afraid that one day we're going to wake up. One day we're going to realize what's been done and doing to us, and we're going to rebel.
So speaking, this is loosely connected. But think of the racial thing. You have two draws on your record, which draws are super, super uncommon in MMA. It's kind of like flipping a quarter and having it land on the side. And you had two, and on one of them, it was a card where there were two draws, And both of the draws were American fighters fighting against Mexico, and the event against Mexican fighters, and the event was in Mexico. Is that the way that it looks on paper, or is that just?
And you know what the hell happened. Let's keep it real. Come on, don't give me that bullshit. Check this out. I remember his name, Arellano. Okay, I was fighting in Mexico. I was 162 pounds. This guy was 180, 190. Didn't weigh in. We're fighting in the middle of the desert in Mexico. I was fighting on a card that was ran by the people, okay? And they were trying to build Mexican fighters. This guy was undefeated, 10-0, 9-0. Look when he fought me. He was still undefeated. I kicked his ass every round, and they called it a draw. And when I started to act ugly, you know what? There's a Hispanic guy that came up to me and said, "You're lucky it was a draw and you get to leave." I set my ass down and shut up. I didn't say shit else.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see two draws on the same card, it's like, wait a minute.
Now, wait, it gets worse. Let's talk about the draw in the UFC. I mean, not the UFC. At the time, what's his name?
Jason Black in the WFA.
Jason Black.
Yeah.
He fought Pat, what's his name?
He's a Militich guy. His final record was like 23-4. He was a stud wrestler.
Right. Let's go over that fight. I kicked his ass the first round. I kicked his ass the second round. I gassed on the third round, and they called it a draw. It was bullshit. But what was Pat Militich? Pat Militich was sending his guys to the UFC. I was supposed to be a guy that if he beat, he would move on and go into the UFC. Guess what? McKee stopped his ass cold in his tracks. Everyone knew I won. That's the kind of business this was. It was a dirty, grimy business, and it is what it is.
That was John Lewis's organization, the WFA, that took
exactly.
place. All right, so
they didn't expect me to win.
Which is weird because the event took place in California.
No, Vegas.
Oh, was that in Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay, close enough.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, it's almost
20
a
minutes
hometown for
yeah.
you. You know, they bring in a guy from Iowa, and it's weird how sometimes that happens, man.
Oh, it's not weird. Come on, man. You guys know what the fuck's going on. Don't sit here and tell me.
Man,
it's
I'm
weird.
a promoter, Antonio, so I get it.
Black guy. Look, I'm a promoter too. And you know I used to get phone calls before people figured out that I was black. And they were like, "Hey, you got any good-looking black guys with muscles? Look, we're trying to build this kid such and such, and we're looking for this, and we'll pay him good. Get the fuck out of here." I'd send my guys, and pretty soon they figured it out. Everybody that comes out of the body shop are fucking tough. We can't out-wrestle them, and they're good. Then they figured it out. They stopped calling us. But then they started calling us at the last minute. We're the last minute guys. Call McKee up. McKee's got guys that'll take the fight. That's why we stayed ready. We didn't have to get ready. We stayed ready because I saw the game. You're going to call us last minute thinking we're not in shape. We're going to go out here and smash that ass. And look at the guys, man. We kicked ass for a gym that was never rated, never talked about, never publicized. There were no big articles on Team Body Shop. Everything was Pat Militich. Pat Militich. No disrespect. I love Pat. Great guy. But they went everywhere else. But they didn't come to the body shop. I wasn't in it for the fame or the fortune. I was in it for the passion.
Antonio, so you know, sitting next to Antonio is Tom Atencio from Affliction. So Tom, did you ever go to those fights in Mexico?
Yeah, I actually I used to photograph for Total Combat. I was a photographer, and that was where I first fought my first fight.
Okay, so
in Tijuana.
Give us a little history on what happens over there. You know, from your perspective.
You know, it really wasn't. I don't think it was as crazy as people thought, but it was a really cool event. I mean, it was just it was Tijuana, but back then it wasn't like it is now. So it's not. I just don't think it was as crazy as people think.
Wait, hold on. No mean to interrupt you, but wait, the owner's dead. The guy, one of the
no, not Total Combat.
Oh yeah,
no,
you're
you're talking about. Yeah, I know who you're talking about because Tracy and I went down to Guadalajara and they killed him. Yeah,
okay,
who was that?
But that was Peter. I can't even remember.
Was it Marco Perez?
I think it might have been.
You know what? Yeah, I think.
Okay, so that's the organization that Antonio fought on. That's the Crown Fighting Championship. And, you know, man, there's been a bunch of promoters that have been killed in Mexico. There was a couple Americans in Puerto Vallarta. There was a Hispanic promoter in Cancun a few years back. So that's just kind of, you know, par for the course, man.
Well, you know what it's about, man. Come on, let's not sit here and act like we don't know that those others exist. Those
what, they didn't look both ways crossing the street? What? I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, the bullets hit him as he was crossing the street.
You know what I mean?
He didn't look across.
They weren't taking people out because it was about the fight.
Way.
It was control, mafia.
Yeah, come on. I mean, you gotta understand though too. You're in a third world country. You're in Mexico, and the things that Antonio talked about as a kid. I mean, there's no respect for life, and that's just imagine growing up the way Antonio did, but multiply that. And you see it in organizations change monthly, yearly, weekly. I mean, there's people in power that a week later they're not, and I mean it's kill or be killed.
Yeah,
really.
how prevalent was that type of those types of people at the event? I mean, were they introducing themselves to you, or were they just kind of sitting back?
No, they don't introduce.
You don't see it. I mean, it's just like anything else.
You know who they are.
Right.
The rumors are there, but you don't for 1 second question that, because that's something that we respect. We respect violence. We respect gangs. We respect that.
You guys ever got like approached or anything like that? It was, like a lot of the pro athletes, like in Texas, they always have kind of they speak to them going, "Hey man, you guys are going to be introduced to a whole bunch of influences that you would normally never come across your way. You got to start saying no to them, in the beginning before they get too big." You guys didn't experience any of that?
No, I didn't experience that.
No.
It was just
like someone's going to meet you with a key of Coke. You give us the money a couple weeks from now.
Oh shit! I lived that all throughout LA.
Well, LA at that time.
My friend was one of the biggest drug dealers in California. That's old.
That's
anyway.
So back, back to the fight.
Real quick. So I had the fortune to train with Antonio. So I know a lot about Antonio that you don't really. I mean, you can only kind of guess how strong he is, how tough he is. But one of the things I'm curious about, Tone, where did the strength come from to be able to hold somebody's wrist like you did? Like Antonio would get somebody's wrist, he would put it behind their back, and there was never getting away from that. And I mean, just aside from that, your stand-up was legitimate, but you very seldom stood and banged with people.
Remember what I said about when you get in the cage, this was the place where I felt free. This is the place where I felt comfortable. I felt there was no pressure. I felt nothing. I said, why should I stand on my feet and bang for $700, for $500, for $75, for $150? I saw guys getting fucked up, bro. I'm talking about bad. And I said, no matter how good I am, I don't ever want to be that guy getting fucked up. So it was so much easier for me because I was fighting guys like Rampage. Who wants to fucking get hit by Rampage? So I was afraid to stand up. I didn't have confidence in it. But in the gym, I outboxed everybody. Ask Tito. Ask Rampage used to beg me to fucking use my hands. But I didn't have the structure like what I provided for my guys. And I didn't give a shit about the fans. I sell 200 tickets. Put me on your card if you want 200 tickets sold. It's real simple. I was a gatekeeper as far as on the small shows. On the big platform, did someone want to pay and see Antonio McKee? No. But I was no different than your greatest fighters that are fighting right now. And now as a promoter, I understand you got to have that sale. You got to be able to sell the show. And you couldn't sell the show with me. So that's when I took on my own and said, you know what? I'm not shooting steroids. There's a lot of that shit going on. As you can see, some of the greatest fighters, they've all been popped for steroids. I was never popped for anything except for crazy. Other than that, I thought I did the right thing. I played it smart. I played it safe. And at 50 years old, I'm able to fight and be on a card with my son today.
And yeah, at 50 years old, you look like you look, you talk like you talk. Like a lot of fighters, they don't look like the same people. They don't sound like the same people.
Yeah.
Like you definitely aged really well for a guy that fought the level of competition you did.
Yeah, your style has allowed you to be present today,
and you couldn't beat it. Right. Nobody could beat it.
Right, and I'm going to show that September 28th. Like I'm still in the gym. I've been in the gym since this game started. I don't miss too many practices. I'm in the gym training every single day with my guys, with my son, with Joey, with Pico at the time when he was with us. I am in the gym on hands, and this is why my guys are kicking everybody's ass, and they're exciting to watch. We're making highlight reels every freaking fight because I'm passionate about being the best coach in the world when I was denied at the time when I was one of the best fighters in the world. The real fight people know it. Chuck Liddell knows it. Rampage knows it. Randy Couture knows it. Dan Henderson knows it. But, like I said, I wasn't in it for the fame or the fortune. I was in it for the cause. I like to fight.
Now, when BJ Penn was a 155-pound champion, did that bother you?
Of course. BJ would probably have been the only guy that could have gave me a run for my money because his jiu-jitsu was like my wrestling, and it was that mount game. But he couldn't have dealt with my strength. I would have threw his ass. I would have slammed him on that ball head of his. BJ's a good dude. He was tough. That was a fight that I did not want, but everybody else I would take.
Yeah, you know what? Like his takedown defense was so phenomenal, but where you have him edged out is the gas tank. I used to always tell people that I go, man, there's a guy named Antonio McKee. He could beat BJ, but it would be a hard fight. But I actually believe that.
Yeah.
They knew that. They knew that. In fact, when I went to John Lewis to train, BJ was up there. When I got in the room, it was me, Tony DeSouza, Mark Lehman, BJ Penn, and Marvin Eastman. When we got into it, immediately they stopped that shit. They stopped it because BJ was leaving. And I got there on the scene. And I'm going to tell you, bro, when I went there, I took it to everybody. Marvin the Beast Eastman was the only one to give me some trouble because he could wrestle. Any wrestler gave me problems, but no one my weight could come close to out-wrestling me. And that's a wrestler's kryptonite, a wrestler that can strike and he can out-wrestle you. Oh, boy, you're in big trouble. No. Can't take him down. He's going to knock you out.
How big of an influence was Mark Lehman with you?
At the time, it took a second for those guys because at the time, John Lewis was still active, and I used to go in there and whoop John Lewis's ass. And John Lewis was the instructor, and I didn't give a shit about that. I used to throw Mark Lehman around, too. I didn't give a shit about that. I was there. I was an uncontrolled Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? Nobody figured it out how to control me. And then John Lewis finally got a little smarter and said, look, for the first 2 weeks you're here, I want you to train in the gi. I had a rash burn around my neck. It humbled me because they couldn't stop me without the gi. So they made me put on the gi, and then I was getting choked out every day. But that made me better because once I took that damn gi off, I got in everybody's ass again. So, a great place to train. I just did not fucking have a chill button.
So do you take instruction well?
Yes, that was one of the things that separated me from the streets, is that I always wanted to be better. And I would listen. I might argue with you, but when I go home, I lay in bed and I think about how much validity to what he was saying is true. And so because I didn't have emotions, and this is a really bad thing, I didn't have emotions. So for me to attach an emotion to something, forget it. So what I had to do is I started using my son as an example for me in life. If someone did this to my son, would I like it? No. Okay, this is not right. If someone did this to my daughter, would I like it? No, this isn't right. Because I was fucked up. I was already numb and dumb. So I started using things that I cared about, flipping the script. So I had that conscious that would talk to me. Antonio, if someone said your mother is a bitch, what would you do? I'd fuck him up. Okay, so don't tell that guy his mother's a bitch. And it saved my life when I was in the club because the guy had a gun.
Oh, really?
Yep. I was humble one night, stepped on a guy's shoe. He said some crazy shit to me. I looked at him and laughed. And I was getting ready to say, yeah, I don't want no beef with you, but I want to fuck your girl.
Oh.
I was kind of an asshole like that.
That's not a good
and
segue.
I stepped on his shoe. I ended up not stepping on his shoe. And then I said, hey, man, you know what? Let me buy you a drink. Took him to the bar and bought him a drink. Later that night, he got a little drunk, house party. Bam, blew this guy head off. That was supposed to be me. That night, I said, and that guy's still in jail right now. In fact, I think he's going to be getting out soon. Because I ended up, we talked.
Yeah.
But
I
ended up never going to a house party again. And I told my son, I said, always think about what you say before you say it. And 1/10 of a second can make the difference of you living and dying.
Oh my!
And you can't.
That is phenomenal advice, man. That is phenomenal advice.
And all the research that we did before this, we could have never found that out. Like, that's the kind of thing people should know because it's useful.
Well, I grew up in a household where it was even is for pussies. But essentially
that's-
what you're saying is spot on. Like it's what would you do if somebody said this to you? And as simple as that life lesson is, you don't really apply it to yourself. You might say it to other people, but apply it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be careful too, because look, I grew up fucked up. So at a time, if you would have asked me that back then, I would have shot that guy for the same reason he shot that guy, because I grew up with that same mentality. That's where I go, what's right and what's wrong. Take your emotions out of it. Because, if I walk in the house and I see a guy sleeping with my wife and I catch him, everybody would grab something and beat the shit out of the guy, right? But what you were failing to realize, your wife let that man in the house. So now you're going to do something to this guy who's completely innocent. Guess what? He didn't even know she was married. She set your ass up because she wanted to hurt you because you cheated on her a year ago, 2 years ago. So she wanted you to feel her pain. So you got to be real careful and do what's right. Take your emotions out of it. I tell my son that all the time. Take your emotions out of it. Take a couple of days and think about it and do what's right. Now, if you're confused, you believe in God, well, in a godly manner, what is right? Spiritually, what is your beliefs? So you think it's okay to take that man's life? Well, someone took your life. And I loved you so much, but they took that away from me. Is that right? Did they have the right to do that? Did I have the right to take your life? Because your mother loves you. Your children need you as a father. But to me, you're a slimy piece of shit because you beat me out of $10,000.
Yeah.
Is it right? No, it's not right. You can replace the money. You can't replace the person.
Yeah. Hey, Antonio, take me back 15 years when, we were looking at some of your fights on your record, and there was an interesting that popped up because we actually just had him as a guest like a few weeks ago with Carl Parisian. That one didn't go your way. That was in California? It was a California fight. But take us through that fight. I think that was a pretty interesting one.
That was bullshit. I won the fight. The reason why I lost because they wanted me to go overtime. Carl Parisian weighed 180. I weighed 162 pounds. I said, listen, I'll fight the guy 3 5-minute rounds, but I'm not going overtime. They were like, well, okay. Well, okay, no problem. First round, I took him down. We rolled around. Second round, I took him down. He almost had me in the heel hook. Third round, he hit the heel hook again. We're outside. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They came to me and they said, hey, they're calling it a draw. I'm like, a draw? Yeah, you need to do 3 more minutes overtime. I go, the guy weighs me by fucking 20 pounds. Are you serious? I said, I tell you what, I'll do overtime, but you guys got to give me an extra $1,000. They said, no, we're not giving you an extra $1,000. If you don't go overtime, we're going to give him the decision. I said, fuck it, give him the decision. And then me and Carl Persian almost got into it behind that on some gunplay. Because he's running around telling him I beat me. I go, dude, you outweighed me by 20 pounds. And I still fucked you up. You want to run it back? And then he was like, fuck you. And then we were going at it. And then the Armos and Antonio are getting ready to get into it. You know what I'm saying? I'm a man, motherfucker. I ain't no kid. Let's run it back. And he never wanted to run it back. So I kept calling him out every time I see him, you little pussy, why you don't want to run it back? Why you don't run it back? Then he gets picked up in the UFC. So, of course, then we weren't going to run nothing back. And then he got cut. I said, hey, let's run it back again. And then I heard he was on drugs. He was all messed up. So he never ran it back again. Yeah. But those are one of the fights. I mean, look, the game back then was different than it is now. Okay, there was no commission.
Yeah, it wasn't.
These were judges that
didn't
were sitting
have
off to the
universal
side.
rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only true loss, man, let's keep it real. Let me tell you my true loss. My true loss was Chris Brennan.
Yeah.
And Ray Cooper. You know why I did that? I'm going to tell you why. They set me up. They brought me into Hawaii, was paying me $750. I see fucking flyers with me all over the airport in Hawaii. I said, hey, guys, what the fuck's going on? I'm the main event, and you're paying me $700? I go, man, fuck you guys. I didn't give a shit about Ray Cooper. So we got into all this big spiel. He made weight. He was a little over. I made him cut the weight. He cut the weight. Then they told me they were going to give me three grand. Then they changed it. Ticket sales didn't do so. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Was this TJ DeSantis? Okay. Who is this with?
This is I don't know.
What was the name of the promotion? I could probably figure it out.
I don't know.
Was it Super Brawl?
Yeah, I think that's
it's TJ DeSantis. Okay. All right, so go ahead.
So they bring me on some bullshit. I see what's going on. I tell my guy Ted Williams, I said, hey Ted, I said, bro, You know this is wrong. I'm the main event. This is a fucking sellout crowd in here.
Warriors
and you guys
punch.
are trying to pay me shit because it went all the way down to the fight, me getting paid. They weren't trying to pay me. So I said, okay. They said, well, we'll give you 15 and 15. I went from $700 to 15 and 15.
Wow. I mean, okay. And to counter that, you did agree for $750 prior to getting there.
Yes.
But not as a main event, which does.
I didn't know I was a main event.
It's usually a question that's asked. You didn't have management.
I was fighting. I didn't know who I was fighting.
Okay.
And then when I did find out who I was fighting, I still agreed to it, got on the plane and got there. But then when I seen I was the main event and I seen how much ammo was behind this, I didn't even train for that fight. Yeah. You know what I mean? It called me out of nowhere. And this was Ted Williams. He's a cool dude. You know, I know him, but that was a slime bucket ass move. He's sucking dick with the promoter.
Yeah, dude, when you got a local ticket seller, I mean, you try to do anything you can to get them a win, man.
So you see what I'm saying?
Oh, that's just the truth. That's the game.
It's nasty. It's grimy. There's no respect. In the street, somebody would have got hurt for that. If this was a drug deal in the music industry, somebody would have got killed. I walked onto a sport that was completely demonic, barbaric, with no motherfucking consequences when you do some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
So I'm confused. And so I took the fight. As soon as I slammed that motherfucker, he threw an armbar, I tapped out, took the money and left. They never brought me back again.
Jeez.
Thank you. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Tom, when you were, I mean, obviously when you were heading up Affliction, did you ever encounter things like that?
Yeah, you know what? I encountered things like that with, I mean, not really, but kind of just more.
Give us a name, Tom. Give us a name.
I know, you got one.
Wait, hold on.
I mean, it's easy. You already know.
I know all about this, so
go ahead, Antonio. Tell on him.
But
call him out.
Who was the guy getting most of your fights? What was that guy's name? The manager from Pat Military's, mostly Pat Military's guys. Who was the guy?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Talked about that.
What was his name?
Monty Cox.
Somebody.
Wait, say his name.
Monty
This
Cox.
is crazy. Why no one wants to say
They said it. He just said it.
Okay, you said it, but he won't say it. See, that's the good stuff I'm talking about. But anyway, Monty Cox pimped the shit out of Affliction. I told those guys, I said, look, fire Monty Cox. He's making more money because he's bringing in all the fighters. He's dictating the pace. He's basically pimping Affliction, and because they didn't have the knowledge and promotion, he pimped them.
No, that's
so
not
Monty
true.
Cox
Did
did
he
pay
him or
off
did he hold him out? Which one was it? He told him to put the high
hold
heels
him
out.
out.
He had Tom put on high heels, Antonio.
You know he did.
And stockings too.
So,
but you know what? Okay, I've said it before. It was Todd. We all know Todd when he wanted something, and he befriended him, and he did that. But keep in mind, it wasn't just Monty.
right,
I mean, think about what the Russian side happened.
right.
You know, I mean, come on, and that's really what it was. It was unfortunate. Todd was a good guy, but when Todd wanted something, he wanted it, and he didn't care how much he had to pay.
Hey, so Tom, in essence, how does somebody, I mean, any manager, whether it's Russians or Monty, whoever it is, if they're dealing with you, how do they cut in line and start dealing with somebody else? It's kind of like when you ask your mom for something, she says no, so then you go ask for dad for the same thing, and he says yes. I mean, was there repercussions?
If dad is the one who has the money, and unfortunately I'm mom in this scenario.
Yeah.
If dad has the money and dad's like, yeah, okay, no problem, and they see that little hint of, oh, okay, we can get this much.
Yeah.
Oh no, guess what? We can get this much. Oh well, shit, he just paid this guy. Guess what? My guy's better. We'll pay him this much. And unfortunately, that's what Todd did. When Todd wanted something, he wanted it, and people saw that, so they went after him, and they got what they wanted.
So
well, actually, they got more than they wanted.
So essentially, Todd was incredibly kind, and sometimes just a little too generous. Mm-hmm. It wasn't his game.
No, it wasn't his game. And Todd, I don't want to say he was kind. He just didn't know the business. It's just like you guys getting into landscaping or something, and I mean, or having a landscaper come out and just telling you, this is what
you're right. Except he's a guy with a ton of money, and I guess maybe he just didn't see the value of what a dollar was. more importantly, Antonio, why didn't you go and holler at Todd?
I did. Actually, I had several meetings with Affliction, and I sat down and I told him the way he was doing it was wrong. I said, look, Tracy's a great matchmaker. I mean, I was in on a lot of stuff. Dude, I went to a UFC meeting in the MGM before it was even MMA. It was cage fighting. It was ultimate fighting. I've been around this sport. Just people didn't know that. I was the little black guy in the corner standing next to the main men. And because that was my interest. To where I was able to even do my own fights. You know what I mean? I was the guy in Hollywood promoting when Bud would call the California Athletic Commission on me. Half the California Athletic Commission guys were up in my show hanging out with the ladies and doing blow and smoking cigars. Like, come on, man.
Hey, who was the biggest snitch out there back in the day telling on a commission on you, man?
King of the Cage.
Woo!
Jerry Treble Clock. They even the California Athletic Commission told me.
Yeah,
they said, look, this came from such and such.
Let's have some real talk here.
When I hit up Bud, you remember Bud? When he was the matchmaker. He worked for Terry Treblecock. When I hit him up, I called him one-on-one. And I said, hey, brother, I need to talk to you. You like about to fuck off about $40,000 of my money, and I ain't going to lose. And you know what he told me? He says, look, man, Terry Treblecock told me to do it. I had nothing to do with that. I don't work for Terry Treblecock anymore. And I was doing my job, McKee. And then guess what? The California Athletic Commission told me too that the phone call came from Terry Treblecock because they didn't want any competition locally. Remember, I had Randy Couture on my show, Tito Ortiz, Rampage. I had all these high-level fighters at my show in Hollywood. It was called UAGF. Universal Above Ground Fighting. I used another guy as the front, and I put up the money. His name was Darren Dotson.
You know what's kind of crazy? And Tom, I think you'll attest to this. Bellator shouldn't exist today because King of the Cage, had they done their homework, they should be the ones competing with the UFC. Mm-hmm. Instead, they just garage sale their product out.
I agree with that 100%.
They hoard themselves out to. It was like a buffet clearing whore. Is what they did with their product.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. You're talking about a fucking gorilla.
Yep.
In the jungle. Okay. First of all, you're not from the jungle, so you wouldn't have the slightest idea what I'm talking about when I say weight of a gorilla. Let me tell you about the Fertitta brothers. Okay. That's a very, very powerful family. Okay.
For sure.
You're not gonna do it that way. They knew exactly what they were doing. And they stuck to their guns, and they used their resources, and they got the job done.
They had a roadmap.
I would have ended up dead had I got more involved in what I was doing. I got death threats. Do you understand? I got death threats that, listen, nigga, you're going to end up dead if you don't shut the fuck up and stay out of the business. What are you talking about? When I put that antitrust lawsuit together against the UFC and I was fighting for this, fighting for that, you guys don't know, man. I was crying. I was going to these places scared, crying like a kid because I didn't understand why my life was about to be taken. Do you know Rampage pulled away from me because he said, McKee, I thought they were going to kill you or have you killed. Do you understand what I was doing? I was looking at these contracts saying, how do you guys sign your ancillary rights over, your likeness and your image over? This is a rap contract for blacks or illiterate people who can't read. You're signing your likeness, your image away.
Yeah, that was for the video game deal.
This was about. This was what Tito was about. No one understood that. But see, I never got on a platform big enough. Thank God I didn't, because I probably wouldn't be here talking to you to this day.
Well, what about King of the Cage, to come full circle?
Do you think they put the same pressure on King of the Cage?
They got exactly what they are supposed to do, and they're doing it. Because guess what? Terry didn't want the gorilla. He didn't want to go to the jungle and fight the gorilla. So you know what he did? He just became the local guy. See, people don't understand these shows that are going. The UFC buys the likeness to the show, and they pay them. Because there's really no money in it unless you have sponsorship. And when you got a gorilla, you do what the gorilla likes. If not, the gorilla can get violent and tear shit up.
Right. Think about how long Terry's been doing his promotion.
Well, I mean, even before then.
He doesn't want to get any bigger. He does not want the headache or the political or the bullshit that comes with it. He's happy
take
in his
these
lane.
sponsors, shut up, and sit back. Is that what you're saying the conversation was?
Absolutely.
I respect
Absolutely.
that. Then you know what? Then I respect that. I stand corrected.
Yeah, then they're on the right track then.
Yeah, you know what? Because they were doing
right
the tough man contests all over the country. That's what King of the Cage was prior to MMA. I mean, it was Terry Treblecock. He was the tough man guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know that King of the Cage should be the UFC.
100%.
Unfortunately, there was no loyalty on Terry's side. There was no gorilla. There was a gorilla in a gorilla suit, but there was no real gorilla there. And the money that he had, and he was working with the guy that he was working with. I think the guy was a doctor, if I remember correct. I'm not sure, but he owned a fitness studio. That guy could not step in front of the UFC. Come on, bro. They bought the rights to all the casinos. You don't even know these shows that are going on at these casinos. Guess what? They get permission from Dada.
Yeah.
See, I'm a promoter, and I was up against this everywhere I went. They were, well, we can't do it. Why? Well, the UFC has this. They own the rights to this. Wait a minute. This is a casino in fucking New York, New Jersey. I'm in a casino over here in Petaluma. No, well, the UFC, because of the tribal leaders, they signed this, and the only way they could be authorized is through this, and no, it can only be boxing or kickboxing. It can't be it can't be MMA. Because I was looking for a location. Look at what I've been doing. I've been promoting for the past 20-something years, and my shows are small shows. I don't want no headache. I don't want to be a fight. I don't want a problem. Let me make my little crumbs, and let me train my fighters, because I know what lies at the end of the road in this. And so I just want to be recognized as one of the greatest, most respectable coaches. And those who know, I was one of the greatest fighters. And I just want to breed champions and help them invest the money that they're making, because there's good money now in the fight game. And I've been very influential to a lot of young up-and-coming guys. I train a lot of guys that are in the UFC now. I just don't talk about it.
Yeah, you hear the names of a few gyms pop up all the time. You always hear about Top Team and the guys in Albuquerque and all that. You don't hear the name Body Shop.
It comes up every once in a while, but nowhere near as often
every once
as
in a while,
should.
but not as much as he has fighters.
Yeah,
as people talk about.
You would have thought when I started training Chuck, people would have said, "What is McKee doing?" They've got over a 96% win streak. Those guys keep winning. And the guys that come to me win. Then they leave and they lose. And they lose.
Yeah.
Look at Pico. Look at that prospect wrestler.
Man, Pico's a victim of terrible management.
Mm-hmm.
Bubba Jenkins.
Bubba Jenkins.
Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper. With me, 8-0, all knockouts, nothing went past the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Look at my history, but I don't care about that. I love my guys. I don't have a contract. If they don't like it, they can leave. And a lot of these shitty-ass guys come to my guys and see them once I get them ready, tell them, hey, I can get you in the UFC. McKee can't get you in the UFC. That's bullshit. Yeah. Because I'm not their manager. I'm their trainer. Your talent is what's going to get you in the UFC. Yeah. Look at Jason High. Jason High was 7-0, 6-0 with me. Started listening to other people, went to the UFC, got beat twice, got kicked out. Look at Chase Gormley. He was an undefeated heavyweight. He was 8-0, 7-0 with me. Guy over at Black House, hey, come over here. I'll get you in. I said, Chase, you're not ready yet. We need a little more time. Goes over there, loses 2. Dream killer, over. Mm-hmm. Kicked out of the UFC.
Yeah, that's a hard road, man. And, like we've talked to people in the past. There's 2 types of people that own gyms. There's coaches that can take somebody from their first practice, to their first, big shot in the UFC. And then there's poachers that sit there and raid locker rooms of guys that have already gotten there. And I'm going to tell you, poachers have brilliant minds. Don't be fooled because, oh, no, he's really smart. No. He can't take a guy from his first day of practice all the way to his first fight in the UFC. Yeah. And you're not a coach if you can't do that.
Right.
Would you not agree, Antonio?
Absolutely, I agree, and that's why, they got smart. They said, "Well, you're gonna fight a guy from the Body Shop, man. Yeah. We don't want that fight. Why? Oh, they're just gonna take us down and ground and pound. Yeah, bullshit. None of my guys fought like me. Not one of them. So what the fuck are you guys talking about? Yeah. There was an excuse not to get that L on your record. We ended Joe Williams' career.
Joe Williams?
I had $100 bet. Joe Williams that fought for, I don't know, he fought for everybody, shit.
Okay.
And Dave Thomas was managing him, and he says, no, man, my guy's a great NCAA wrestler. I said, dude, he's going to get fucked up in the first round.
Joe Williams from Iowa?
Yeah.
You're talking
Jesse
four-time high school state champion Joe Williams, Olympic legend Joe Williams.
We beat him in the first round. He got choked out in the first 2 minutes of the fight. That's how serious we were.
Man, we went to the same high school, man. I sat next to that dude, man. You got to back off, Antonio. This is getting too serious for me, man.
Hey, the truth is the truth. He fought a body shop guy. He was a better wrestler, so they said. He got beaten in less than a fucking minute, 2 minutes.
I didn't even know he fought MMA.
Yeah,
we might not be talking about the same Joe Williams.
Yeah, maybe not. Hey, so Tom, hit and rewind a little bit. When you were promoting for Affliction, did you ever get any death threats?
No.
No? So they didn't like you enough then, huh?
He wasn't the money guy. He wasn't the money guy.
He was the face guy, though.
No. But look, you don't go after Dana White if you want to shut down the UFC. Dana's just a mouth, right? But it's kind of funny that the guy that was there is no longer alive. And I'm not saying or trying to insinuate anything, but it's kind of weird how those type of people don't last long.
You know, it is kind of strange. You know, Antonio, which is weird, is that you can kind of pick them out. Like there's a few people that you meet and you bring it up to somebody next to you. Yeah, guys like that, you know, doesn't really end well for them. And you can kind of pick them out, you know, and sometimes they're successes, sometimes they're not, you know. But the one thing is he was smart enough to put good people in place to make an incredibly successful product. And then he puts a guy like Tom in place who has got an absolute encyclopedic mind in terms of MMA. And then he kind of doesn't want to listen to him. Like
that's the problem.
And that's bizarre to me. Like you've done everything right up until this point. You know who to plug in. I mean, I can sit here and call up Tom Atencio, throw him a B name, you know, that maybe did one fight in the UFC, you know, 15 years ago, and Tom will go, oh yeah, this about him, this about him, this about him, and none of it's online. Like, Tom is friggin' autistic when it comes to MMA, and he knows the sport.
Mm-hmm. He's Rain Man of this.
Well, see, he wasn't aggressive like me, and he's still living. Had I been him in his position, I would be dead.
Yeah, there's something to say about that.
And although thankfully they never threatened Tom's life, they did put the hit out on Affliction in a different way, which we talked about in the episode with Tom.
Yeah, they got Affliction. They did get. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they had another. If that hadn't have worked, if they hadn't have been able to, you know, pop the show the way they did, you know, the main things could.
Yeah, with the Athletic Commission.
Yeah, if they hadn't used the Athletic Commission as muscle, they probably
as a
used
tool.
some other muscle.
Yeah.
Well, look. When I filed the antitrust lawsuit and I was doing my thing with the Fighters Union, they donated that day when we went into court. Okay, we're on the ballot. We get into court. They had Matt Hughes, Ronda Rousey, and Lorenzo, I think it was. He donated $80,000 that day, donation to the California Athletic Commission. Now, I want to be honest with you.
Pure generosity,
this is where
I'm sure.
Check myself. Okay, check this out. I'm your boss, and I'm paying you $1 million a year to live comfortable, to have a good life, to raise your kids up, to go to good schools. You don't have to worry about them being around guys like me, hungry, willing to do anything to eat. And things aren't right. And you see that they're not right. Are you going to go roll on me? Are you going to go rat on me and say, hey, Antonio's doing things that are not right, and even though he's my boss and he's paying me all this money, I just want to let you guys know this ain't right.
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, you're not going to do that, right? So we have to look at it the same way. The gorilla at this time is powerful and is making sure that a lot of people eat. You cannot ask these people who are in political positions to go against these people, which is the reason why they're in the political position that they're in and why they're able to survive and sustain a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. What we have to do is we have to infiltrate the jungle and work for these people. I speak so eloquently all the time about this. I'm not going to snitch on the homie in the street if he shoots somebody and he fucked up. I'm not going to go rat on him. It's my boy. So in the system, it is a system of people who work together. Mm-hmm. They're going to always work together, even if it sometimes costs people lives, if it costs a senator his job. Their job is to stay in power and to keep employing those who are running the show. It's a system that works together.
Yeah.
You don't play by the game. I mean, you don't play by the rules, then you're not going to be able to play this game. You're going to have to go do something else.
Yeah.
And so if you're not born into this, you're elected into this.
Right. And Tony, I'm watching you sit on your chair right now, man. You're flexing your shirt all nice and proud, man. We still en route to make history for Bellator or what?
Hell yeah, man. I'm looking good, man. I feel good. I feel great. I'm in great. I mean, at my age, to be able to even train every day is a God blessing.
So you still got that fight that next month, right?
Yeah, I'm fighting September 28th.
You and your son on the same card.
Isn't that amazing?
I
used to dream this. I used to dream this when he was a kid.
That's good. So who's your opponent? And what do you know about him?
William Sarapaya. He's a kickboxer. He beat Razor Rob, so he's got good stand-up if he beat Razor Rob.
Razor Rob's a bad boy.
Yeah, he is.
So he beat Razor Rob, but I used to beat Razor Rob. So, that was 20 years ago. We're talking, you're 47 now. I'm 50, 49. I've been doing this shit every day, and you've been partying and eating and hanging out, I don't know how he's going to deal with it. We know that I can take him down and I can finish him on the ground. That's not a question.
So you're going to make history that night by being on the same card as your son, right?
Right.
How's your son doing with his training?
That's the good thing is that I'm not being selfish. It's not about me in this fight card. I'm going to go out here and do what I got to do to win. I just need to be in shape, right? With no injuries.
Because
at this age.
I'm going to tell you something, man. Your kid, he's something else, man. He's got it. And honestly, dude, with that kid living in the house, man, if he wants to take the car on Friday night, man, I would just give him the keys, man. I wouldn't even want to get in an argument with that kid.
No. Hell no. I'm still that gangster. Don't get that shit twisted.
You know what? There's something to be said about a father being in their son's life.
Yeah.
And, like you look at the Mayweathers, we just had a guy on Sean Simpson who's got a real good father, good.
It's important.
Good unit. And, Antonio, you've always had the foot on the gas pedal. And by the grace of God, I think we can say that you're still alive today. And your son absolutely takes in your footsteps. And I think having you as a governor has allowed him to avoid a lot of the, the bullshit that you run into, when coming up.
It's been rough. We didn't start out making no real money. His first contract with Bellator was fucking $1,500 a show and $1,500 to win. Mm-hmm. And then the second fight was fucking $2,000 a show and $2,000 to win. But they didn't know how good he was. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting back laughing. Okay, we'll take this shit pay. No problem. And then he's 3-0. They're all finishes. They're like, hey, we didn't really know your son was this good, so we want to move his pay up. Okay, just whatever the pay is, I'm not asking for anything extra. Just make it match the opponent. Okay, so now we're at 5.
That's fair.
10, 50. He's blowing right through everybody. And I'm laughing because I know how good he is. I've been training him since he was a baby. Mm-hmm. His style is very unorthodox. His striking is very unpredictable, but he hits hard and kicks hard as fuck. So I already knew what I was dealing with. Certain fights they tried to give him, I said, well, that's not part of what his fight contract is. So let's stay in the realms of his contract. After he knocked out a couple of guys that he shouldn't have knocked out, they had to establish things with me. And I said, listen, my son is the best. But do I want to push him this fast? No, I don't.
Yeah,
we'll be patient. We're not ready. Yeah. We're not ready yet. No, we're not ready. Son, keep talking about Pitbull and putting him in a kennel. Keep telling him all that shit. That's your job to sell the fight, promote. I'm your father first, and I'm your manager and your trainer. Let me do both of those jobs. I do it very well because I've had such experience. So I was able to separate those emotionally and tell Bellator, look, I'm not asking for any handouts, no gimmies, no protection. Just make the money match the fight. And so they saw that, you know what, McKee's, he's legit about what he's saying and what he's doing. We're watching him. He's doing it the right way. He's not trying to ask for millions right now and burn his kid's career. Mm-hmm. He's saying, look, put me on this path. I want this for the long term, not the short term. And I built a really good relationship with Scott Croker. They saw all my fighters are making highlight reels. So now we're in a position where, okay, look, your son is going to have to step it up a notch. Okay, let's talk some money. Okay, we're making 6 figures now, a fight.
Damn.
Let's move forward. Let's move forward now. Bring him whoever you want. We'll be ready.
I always say when it comes to making money that you get a reasonable percentage of the revenue that you generate. Like, no matter if you work at McDonald's, like you're selling food off a dollar menu, you don't make a lot of money. AJ McKee, a lot of people are tuning in just for him. Like, whatever that show is making, I mean, dude, he's super legit.
And please don't take this as an insult, Antonio. He's
Yeah.
almost got the Mayweather effect, and it's getting there.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that we always talk about in MMA is nobody brings fighters along. Every fight is a dog fight. Every fight is rough. He brought his son along the way every fighter who's going to have a long career should be brought along. He did everything right.
But it wasn't just AJ. Look at Joey Davis. He's 133-0 in college wrestling, went undefeated 4 years, 4-time NCAA champ. He's 5-0 in Bellator, 3 finishes. Aaron Pico, when he was with me, was 4-0, all knockouts in the first round. I mean, I understand this shit. I know it. Fuck what I did. I'm a wrestler, and I didn't want to change. I didn't give a shit what you think or say. But I know the business, and I know how to train fighters. There's a different animal in that cage when you're getting there with one of my guys. You better be ready for everything. You better, and you better be able to wrestle. If not, we're gonna find that loophole. We're gonna kick your ass.
Tom, what's your take on this? What's your take on AJ and Antonio and their relationship?
You know, I mean, I've seen AJ grow from a kid. Actually, he's always been a very respectful kid. But now you look at him and he's a man, and he's very mild-mannered. He's very calm. I don't know, man. I'm curious how you handle the fact that obviously you prepare him for a fight, but I don't want my kid to fight. I want him to know how to fight, but I don't want him to fight. How do you deal with that?
You know what? I didn't want him. I'm going to be honest. I told him, I said, this game is grimy. It's worse than the fucking music industry.
Horrible,
I was there with Snoop Contracts and Suge Knight and Tupac and all that shit. I said, this shit is worse than the music industry. This is worse than the fucking drug game. Why? Because there's no fucking loyalty. There's nobody being punished for the dumb shit that they do. And it's who you know, not what you know. Oh, I'm friends with fucking Dana White, and I suck dick over here for Joe Silva. And so these guys are getting in. It's a little different in MMA. You know what I mean? There's nobody being held responsible for when a guy gets fucked up, his orbital's busted, or his jaw socket is broken, he's fucked up, he can't fight. There's no pension, there's no benefits, there's no retirement. In fact, they barely want to cover his fucking medical bills.
And then in the UFC, if you have all those issues, they want you to come back and fight another monster right away.
Right. I said, listen, son, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it the right way, and you're going to listen to me, or I'm going to step away. I want no parts of this shit. And he said, okay, Dad, I'll listen. Take it from here. I'm coming from college. He dropped out of college. He came back, and we slept in a studio for probably fucking a year and a half with 6 people in a studio. That means I slept in the bed with my daughter. My son slept on the floor. My other kid slept on a couch. My wife slept on the floor. I couldn't get her to leave. But I had a master plan, and I just had to get rid of her ass. But you know what? Check it out. Look where we're at. When he gets in the cage to fight, he's fighting for something bigger than what anybody in that cage is fighting for. He's fighting for pride. He felt like, you know what, Dad? I watched you train Tito. I watched you train Dan Henderson. I watched you train these great fighters. Why are they rich? He asked me that question one day. He says, we're at Rampage's house up in the valley, not the valley, off of the 5 up there where Kobe Bryant, Mission Viejo lives. Yeah. And we're in the back. Rampage's having a barbecue, and we're in the pool. And my son is looking at me, and he's mad as fuck. And I'm like, what the fuck is he tripping? He goes, Dad, I watch you train and beat these guys. Why don't we have a house like this? And I thought about it. I go, fuck, he's right. I go, son, I didn't play the game. I didn't play the game. I didn't understand structure. I didn't have someone to say, look, you're doing this the wrong way. You're doing this. And if I did, I probably wouldn't have fucking listened. So with him, I said, listen, one thing your dad knows. He watched me train the best fighter. And he would always ask me, why are you training the best fighters, but yet no one knows who you are except the best fighters? Mm-hmm. You're a celebrity to the celebrities. Household names don't even know who you are. I try to brag, hey, my dad's Antonio McKee. They go, who? Until the IFL. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of pain there. And he says, Dad, I'm going to revenge this. Every time he gets in the cage, man, I swear I look in his eyes and he's not my son. He's somebody else. He says, I want them to respect our last name. And I said, well, you do it with pride and integrity, and you'll stay humble. And you know what? Don't be a nigga.
Yeah, you definitely didn't have the benefit of that kind of father growing up, but it's great to see that you became that father.
Yeah, he certainly broke the cycle, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, my dad killed his dad. And that was scary for me because me and my son, I've always felt like me and him were going to cross that path one day. And like I say, man, a lot of shit people don't pay attention to is genetics. Yes, you can change, but genetics is fucking genetics. Mm-hmm. And my son is a hothead like me. He has a temper and he loses it. He's head-butted doors. He's fucking punched through walls. He's done some shit
That's growing
to
up.
where had I not grown to be the person that I am, one of us would have killed each other. Mm-hmm. And that haunts me because my dad killed his dad.
Damn.
And it was self-defense. And I see this spiritual energy that lingers over us to where I look in his eyes sometimes and I can see there's something there that's not who he is. And I don't want to ever have to deal with that because I'm going to probably have to take his life. And those are things that people don't want to ever hear or say. But I've expressed that to my son. I watched Floyd Mayweather and his father one day in a gym brawl. I watched the shit that happened and I started crying because I don't ever want to be that way with my son. So I went and got my son and said, son, I want you to watch something with me. And my son said, Dad, why are you crying? I said, you see this? For some strange reason, I feel like I need to tell you, son, let's not ever go this far. And it's happened. It's happened before. And I was the bigger person. Had I not grown and matured, I would have went in the room and got my gun and shot my son. Because he won't hit me. He won't fight me. But it's not about that. It's about the level of disrespect.
Yeah.
I love you.
And Tony, sometimes like Bellator, they tend to go with like the gimmicky route with some of their fights. And obviously like Kevin Ferguson Jr. is I don't know if he's still fighting for Bellator or not, but has that fight ever been offered to AJ? I mean, I think that would be right up the Bellator.
To fight who?
Kevin Ferguson Jr. Baby Slice.
To fight who?
Your son, Baby Slice. AJ, yeah. So Kimbo Slice's kid.
Together. Why would they fight each other? And AJ's 145 pounds and Slice is 155.
Oh, I thought there was
I know there was talks on the internet of them making it happen. I think it was Miguel that started that.
Yeah,
no, if anything, it was Aaron Pico and AJ fighting.
Yeah,
no, we had a wise ass on the show a while ago, and he was mentioning.
But it was a serious tone. Like I think
it was a serious tone because Bellator goes gimmicky with a lot of their stuff.
Right.
You know, it was like right around like the Ken Shamrock possibly coming back, even though he's done a couple fixed fights,
right.
And you know they kind of mentioned, well, you know, the next step for them is Kimbo Slice's son versus Antonio McKee's son, and it actually kind of made sense, but obviously they train together.
Yeah.
Dude, first of all, Kevin Ferguson. My boy, I love him. You know what I mean? But when you talk about styles, bro, there's nobody in our gym that can beat AJ.
That's good.
I don't think you guys realize how good he is because I've been holding back his potential until the fight, until the money is right and my son's mature. There's things that go on in his life that I didn't agree with. There was things that he was doing that I didn't agree with, and I could not sit up and put my son in a road of destruction. So I said, Bellator, we're not ready yet. My son's not ready. He's got personal issues that don't need the service to the public. And when he fought this one fight, you guys didn't know he didn't train for 2 weeks. When he fought that fight, he fought it with a broken hand. There's things that I'm dealing with outside of the fight game. See, and that's where everybody loses. They always see the fight in the ring, but they don't see the fight on the outside of the ring. And that's the worst. That's harder than the fight in the ring. The fight in the ring is where we go let it all go. The fight outside the ring is harder and bigger than anything that we could ever imagine. Yeah. And he wasn't ready for the success because there were some things that he was going through as a child that I had to get that shit fixed.
Yeah. Well,
that's one of the other things too. That I don't understand is like the grind you put your body through every single day. And like you said, the fight's the easy part. It's the preparing. It's what you put your body through every single day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. I mean, it's so difficult for anybody. You know, and I don't know anybody that goes into a fight 100%. You always have aches and pains. You always have something.
No, our guys do. We don't train like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that explains.
That's part of the success of our winning is that we don't hit each other in the head like they do at ATT or at Kings MMA. They beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
I don't believe in that. There's a thing called concussions.
When we trained, we did it.
Not me. I didn't play that shit.
You hit me pretty fucking hard.
Nah, but come on, you know what I'm talking about. Every day.
Was that light? You're telling me you were hitting me light?
Well, you know, I personally don't believe that a man should strike another man in the head in practice and try to knock him out. That shit's crazy.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys do.
That's because they're not coached properly. A lot of these coaches come from the old school.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of these coaches can barely talk. And a lot of their fighters back from the old school are, man, look at the history of the sport, dude. They're messed up.
Yeah.
And a lot of the coaches, like, I went through this, you have to go through this because I went through it. Not because it's right, but just because they don't want somebody else to not have to suffer the way they did.
No disrespect to these coaches, but they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, Tony, we don't want to take too much more of your time, man. I know it's we were hitting almost the 2-hour mark, but before we wrap up, man, you want to shed any light on us, look through the crystal ball, tell us what's on the future for the McKee family? Or
the Body Shop Gym, the McKee family?
Yeah. We're just going to keep training champions. I think, though, I'll be honest with you, once AJ is done, Joey Davis is done, I'm done. The sport, it's not a sport. This is entertainment. I can't take it. I put way too much in to get 10%, 15%. When managers don't do shit, they make 20%. And I think managers need to take a step back. I think there needs to be a union formed. I think there needs to be some benefits and some pensions, and I think there needs to be a retirement plan. It's unfortunate, but my kid is set up already for that. Joey Davis, the guys that are in my program, they pay me 20%, 5% of that goes toward their retirement in a 401k or in a mutual annuity fund. That's part of my agreement. You may not like it, but I'm doing this for you, those that are on that level of making that kind of money. If you're just a nickel and dime guy, you just pay gym dues, train, fight. If you show the potential, I'll spend extra time with you. You show me your dedication, I'll spend time with you. And basically, anybody that is listening to this, you've never heard anybody that knows me say bad things about me. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I never heard any good things about me. And I assumed that everything everybody said about me was bad. And then every interview, they would say, well, no one's ever said anything bad about you. Well, no one's ever said anything bad about you. Mm-hmm. Well, no one said anything bad about you. I never heard anything bad about me. And so a lot of times we create our own atmosphere. And I had to let a lot of my past go. I had to learn how to talk to people, not at people. I had to learn to say people, not white people. You know what I mean?
We're not all bad.
So, that helps.
Yeah, we're not all bad.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something, and then it hurts me sometimes. I want to cry. Like, literally, I'm a fucking teddy bear. But when I see all these senseless murders, and it's not the murders that, when black people are being killed by officers or by people just in general. It's the way that they're doing it. And that hurts because I don't want to blame all the white people for being bad. Because my greatest mentors, my advisors, my coaches, my wife, her family, they were white. My child, half white. But I don't know who's good and who's bad out of all these white people that have helped me. I don't know who the good ones are outside of them. So I'm scared. And I'm operating on fear outside of my atmosphere. You know what I mean? So I've learned how to say things just like how to do things. And so I just want people to call me with their problems. I want people to say, hey, Antonio, I'm going through this. Do you know how many fighters were worried that I was going to end up dead, but they was happy that I was doing it? Like, man, McKee. I met every fighter in the UFC. I know them all. I've talked to all of them that are the top dogs. And it said, I can't say what you say, McKee, but I listen to every one of your interviews. And I like what you're saying, but I can't say it. Why?
I hope that you win this fight for all of us.
Yes. And it wasn't even about color. It was about what's right for humanity in the sport that they want to say is a sport that I look at as a source of entertainment.
Yeah. Well,
so
With that, we want to thank you, Antonio, for your time.
And Tom, thanks for hooking this up, man. There's no way we would have got this type of FaceTime without Tom Atencio. Dude, huge thank you, Tom.
And also, Antonio, I want to congratulate you on your marriage. The conversation was moving so quick, I didn't want to stop to say it, but congratulations. Married 6 months ago. Good luck.
I think it was like 3 months ago.
Oh, 3 months ago.
Well, we're not going to say think. We're just going to say we're happy with everything because I'm sure every day is so blissful you forget how long you've been married.
Yeah.
Well, Lance is a really nice guy. He
said I'm married to a man.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I
don't judge all, man. But I ain't with that shit.
I'm not saying anything wrong with that.
Tom's trying to rub off on me.
With that, we want to say thank you, Tom.
Thank you, man. We owe you one.
And with that, we're always in your corner, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Antonio.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you, guys.
So Tom Atencio really came through for us. Antonio McKee, everyone can agree with on a surface level, it's low-hanging fruit. Like that guy is entertaining, he's interesting, and
it's low-hanging fruit in terms of it's easy for us because he is super entertaining.
Yeah, I mean we knew, right. I mean that's not a difficult interview to do. You know, you just gotta say one question, shut up, and sit back.
Hit record and just walk away. Yeah, that's the type of guy.
Interrupt every once in a while, but try to limit your interruptions, and that's what we did. But Tom Atencio, one of the founders from Affliction as well as the MMA organization, he really came through with us, man, and we owe him big time for this because we wouldn't have got the time that we needed for an Antonio McKee interview had it not been for him.
And a guy like Tom has a huge Rolodex, so this is not going to be the first or last name that we use from his Rolodex.
From his Rolodex,
yeah.
And I'm going to say, I mean, let's put it in a proper perspective. Tom Atencio left his house, drove an hour, went to McKee's gym, set up the sound system. Took us like 35, 40 minutes to figure it out with Antonio sitting there, and then helped us with the interview.
Yeah, and
that's a good dude.
Oh, yeah.
And Antonio has a fight next month at 50. Like he's working hard. He's got lots of fighters who are fighting.
Dude, Antonio's a monster. He's like the
he
David.
Look 50, man.
He's the David Goggins of MMA. I mean, he really is. You argue
if
that.
you listen to this episode and you are not inspired to run out and go,
hurt somebody, hurt yourself, anything.
This is a super intense interview with a super intense guy. But
it kind of like we started kind of circling the drain at some point. I'm glad we kind of veered out of it. And what we did was we started talking about other promotions that he has fought for, and it kind of opened up the conversation. And I think that's when we got the real Antonio McKee.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Like everything else, like, man, a real deal, but, a little off the radar, not your normal talking points. And, I'm glad that nobody steals that from us because friggin' journalists have no idea what they're doing.
If we wouldn't have stopped Antonio, how long do you think this podcast could have went on for?
3 hours.
3 hours,
dude.
3 hours.
I don't think it. So I had an experience where Antonio McKee came to town with one of his fighters, and I was working for that promoter, and they had to check out of their hotel at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they had flights that were leaving at 7 p.m. So I drove around all day with a van full of fighters.
They didn't want to get dropped off at the airport.
Not for 8 hours or something.
So they say you're our entertainment.
Pretty much. So I drive with these guys all around Chicagoland through that. Man, Antonio McKee, he talked the entire time, and he was as funny the minute I dropped him off as he was the minute I picked him up.
Give him a hug goodbye. He's one of those guys. Like,
dude,
man,
dude, that was that was really a highlight. So to answer your question, how long this could be, it could have been 6 hours. He'd have still been going, and he would have still been every bit as interesting in hour 6 as minute 1.
I agree. I think so. In the nicest way possible, the guy doesn't shut up. Okay,
No.
and that translates.
you have him at a party, man. It's good news.
Yeah, if you invite him.
Yeah.
He's good people, man.
Yeah, he is. He is.
So,
He is.
Well, with that, man, if you guys can do us a favor, if you found this remotely entertaining, if you're still listening now, I'm assuming you went already all the way through it. If you can hit like, share, subscribe, it helps us out. Like we're still growing our brand. We haven't put a dime into advertising or anything like that, and we're relying strictly on word of mouth and people that enjoy our content.
And if you know somebody that's a fighter, especially, definitely have them listen to this. Towards the end, he gets into a lot of stuff that nobody is telling MMA fighters. A lot of boxers get this information, advice about how to bring yourself along, how to save.
Yeah. You got a racehorse.
Yeah.
Treat them right.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yep. Excellent.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.